darkness hath encompassed every land, O my God, and caused most of thy servants to tremble. I beseech thee, by thy most great name, to raise in every city a new creation, that shall turn towards thee, and shall remember thee amidst thy servants, and shall unfurl, by virtue of their utterances and wisdom, the ensigns of thy victory, and shall detach themselves from all things, or from all created things. Potent art thou to do thy pleasure. No God is there but thee, the most powerful, he whose help is implored by all men.
The period ahead is short, strenuous, fraught with mortal perils for human society, yet pregnant with the possibilities of unsurpassed triumphs for the power of Baha'u'llah's redemptive cause. On every daring adventurer in the service of the cause of Baha'u'llah, the concourse on high shall descend, each bearing aloft a chalice of pure light. Every one of these adventurers God himself will sustain and inspire, and will cause the pure waters of wisdom and utterance to gush out and flow copiously from his heart. The kingdom of God, writes Abdul Baha, is possessed of limitless potency. Audacious must be the army of life, if the confirming aid of that kingdom is to be repeatedly vouchsafed unto it. Vast is the arena, and the time ripe to spur on the charger within it. Now is the time to reveal the force of one's strength, the stoutness of one's heart, and the might of one's soul.
God, the true one, is my witness. This is the day whereon it is incumbent upon everyone to seek to behold, and every ear that hearkeneth to hear, and every heart that understandeth to perceive, and every tongue that speaketh to proclaim unto all who are in heaven and on earth, this holy, this exalted, and all highest name. Say, O men, this is a matchless day. Matchless must be likewise be the tongue that celebrateth the praise of the desire of all nations, and matchless the deed that aspireth to be acceptable in his sight. The whole human race hath longed for this day, that perchance it may fulfill that which well beseemeth its station and is worthy of its destiny.
Were ye to know how great is the revelation of this bounty, how plenteous the gifts that have been vouchsafed, I swear by the ravishing beauty of the Abha beloved, and by the soul-stirring smile of that peerless charmer of hearts, that you would dance with delight in your eagerness to lay down your lives, and would leap with joy as ye hasten to the field of sacrifice. You would raise with one hand the brimful cup of self-sacrifice, and with the other the laurel of supreme bounty successfully won.
We are going to sing a pioneering song, Muhajir. Please sing with me. Durud bi hayal ma be muhajir amre saho tajbir mi goyim az dil o jan Allah ey hazrat abdul baha kaid o tawfiq shamil namo bari mu'minin kibriya Allah I'm
beseech the Lord your God to grant that no earthly entanglements, no worldly affections, no ephemeral pursuits may tarnish the purity or embitter the sweetness of that grace which flows through you. I am preparing you for the advent of a mighty day. Exert your utmost endeavor that in the world to come, I who am now instructing you may, before the mercy seat of God, rejoice in your deeds and glory in your achievements.
Verily, Christ said, "Come that I may make you fishers of men." And today we say, "Come that we may make you quickeners of the world." Lo, this is the day of grace. Come ye that I may make you kings of the realm of my kingdom. If ye obey me, you will see that which we have promised you, and I will make you the friends of my soul in the realm of my greatness, and the companions of my beauty in the heaven of my might forever.
I swear by him who is our beloved and your beloved, that if one's life be not offered up in his path, it would not be worth even as much as a mustard seed. And if one's inmost being were not laid down at his feet, it would appear more abject and insignificant than a pebble.
O servants of the one true God, O handmaids of the merciful, from the outset love was rebellious and bloodthirsty, so as to put every stranger to flight. One of the requisites of true love is willingness to bear every suffering and tribulation that hath occurred in the past or may occur in the future. Hence, a passionate lover is always stained with blood, and he that yearneth to meet the beloved a constant wanderer. How well is it said, "The worldly wise who garner the ears of grain are unaware of Layla's secret. For unto none was accorded the great glory but Majnun, he who set the whole harvest afire."
Drop by drop. Let us be on guard, so the Master continually reminds us from his station on high, lest too much concern in that which is secondary in importance, and too long a preoccupation with the details of our affairs and activities, make us neglectful of the most essential, the most urgent of all our obligations, namely, to bury our cares and teach the cause, delivering far and wide this message of salvation to a sorely stricken world. To his valiant combatants on earth, who at times may feel disheartened, our ever-victorious commander, Abdul Baha, gives us the following assurance. O ye servants of the sacred threshold, the triumphant hosts of the celestial concourse, arrayed and marshaled in the realms above, stand ready and expectant to assist and assure victory to that valiant horseman who with confidence spurs on his charger into the arena of service. Well is it with that fearless warrior who, armed with the power of true knowledge, hastens unto the field, disperses the armies of ignorance, and scatters the hosts of error, who holds aloft the standard of divine guidance and sounds the clarion of victory. By the righteousness of the Lord, he has achieved a glorious triumph and obtained the true victory. With such inspiring words as these, are we to remain any longer unmoved and inactive? His trumpet call resounds on every side and summons us to service. Are we to tarry and hesitate? His voice is calling aloud from every land. Let us march on, unfettered and unafraid, and fulfill our glorious destiny.
O God, my God, aid me to adore thee, strengthen my loins to serve thee. Assist me by thy grace in my servitude to thee. Suffer me to remain steadfast in my obedience to thee. Pour forth upon me the liberal effusions of thy bounty. Let the glances of the eye of thy loving kindness be directed towards me, and immerse me in the ocean of thy forgiveness. Grant that I may be confirmed in my allegiance to thy faith, and bestow upon me a fuller measure of certitude and assurance, that I may wholly dispense with the world, may turn my face with entire devotion towards thy face, be reinforced by the compelling power of proofs and testimonies, and, invested with majesty and power, may pass beyond every region of heaven and earth. Verily, thou art the merciful, the all-glorious, the kind, the compassionate.
O Hijo del Ser, thou Son of Being, tú eres mi lámpara, thou art my lamp, y mi luz está en ti, and my light is in thee. Obtén de ella mi resplandor, if thou from it thy radiance, y no busques a nadie sino a mí, and seek Great. Thank you.
Say, step out of thy holy chamber, O maid of heaven, inmate of the exalted paradise. Drape thyself in whatever manner pleaseth thee in the silken vesture of immortality, and put on in the name of the all-glorious the broidered robe of light. Hear then the sweet, the wondrous accent of the voice that cometh from the throne of thy Lord, the inaccessible, the Most High. Unveil thy face and manifest the beauty of the black-eyed damsel, and suffer not the servants of God to be deprived of the light of thy shining countenance. Grieve not if thou hearest the sighs of the dwellers of the earth, or the voice of the lamentation of the denizens of heaven. Leave them to perish on the dust of extinction. Let them be reduced to nothingness, inasmuch as the flame of hatred hath been kindled within their breasts. Intone then before the face of the peoples of earth and heaven, and in a most melodious voice, the anthem of praise, for a remembrance of him who is the King of the names and attributes of God. Thus have we decreed thy destiny. Well able are we to achieve our purpose.
O my friends, this is the call of the covenant. This is the dispensation of the well-beloved of all mankind. This is the gift that the day star of the world hath graciously given. This is the revelation of his incorruptible grace, the manifestation of his perpetual assistance, the evidence of the power that is born of God and the potency of the bestowals preferred by the All-Merciful. What else do you want? What else do you expect? Which path do you tread? Be quick, O companions. Hurry, hurry, O ye loved ones, and upon ye be his glory. Exert yourselves. Your mission is unspeakably glorious.
Hello everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much to our readers for the beautiful devotions, and to our musicians for the wonderful music. And thank you all for being here. Well, on a more joyous note, welcome to the South Central Homefront Pioneering Gala. I just want to welcome you all. And on behalf of the South Central Regional Baha'i Council, I want to welcome you to this special gathering. Tonight is a very momentous and special time in our region. There are a number of anniversaries that were the twin holy days that are coming up this fall that we're all anxiously looking forward to and planning and preparing for. But also, as you know, February 3rd of 1917, so about 100 years ago, was the anniversary of Abdul Baha's sending his tablet to the Baha'is of the southern states. And I just want to read a small part of that tablet because I think it kind of sets a little bit of the context of where we are right now. So Abdul Baha writes, "At this time and at this period, we must avail ourselves of this most great opportunity. We must not sit inactive for one moment. We must sever ourselves from composure, rest, tranquility, goods, property, life, and attachment to material things. We must sacrifice everything to His Highness, the possessor of existence, so that the powers of the kingdom may show greater penetration and the brilliant effulgence of this new cycle may illumine the worlds of minds and ideas." So this is a very, very special gathering of friends who are indeed responding to Abdul Baha's call to us 100 years ago for the followers of Baha'u'llah to arise and to spread the message across all the regions and states of this country. Just to introduce myself, my name is Nate Gandomi, and I'll be helping us move through the program tonight. We are exceedingly privileged to have Mr. Dunbar here with us tonight, who I'll be introducing a little bit later in the program. I'd also like to say that we have the honor of having Ms. Wandi Lawson, member of the Continental Board of Counselors, with us as well tonight. And she is right here. Just want to acknowledge her. Thank you for being here. However, before Mr. Dunbar speaks, there are a few other parts of our program that we have included to help us understand a little bit more about the role Homefront Pioneering, being a mobile resource, or even offering a period of service can play in helping our region achieve its goals in this plan, and how each of us can play a part in reaching those goals. Okay, so before we move on to the program, I think there are, if I'm mistaken, maybe some index cards on your chair? No? Okay, yeah, so there are some index cards that Nadia has, and so if you have a question that you would, this is for Mr. Hooper Dunbar's talk, if you have any questions that you'd like him to address during his comments, there are index cards there. If you can fill them out, we'll get them to him before he talks, and he can address them. So now at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Regina Raffraff, Secretary of the Council, who will talk a little bit about those opportunities for service. Thank you.
Well, I just want to welcome everybody on behalf of the South Central Council and convey the loving greetings of the Council. It's so wonderful to be in Austin and see all of you and all the artistic musicians and beautiful devotions. Thank you. So when the Council met with our dear counselor, Wandi Lawson, and the Regional Training Institute Board, we studied the guidance, and so I'll be putting up just a couple of quotes in a minute. And we thought about how we're going to win the goals of the plan in our region. We really prayed about that. We studied the guidance. We've consulted together. And this is the result of some of that consultation this evening. And again, we'll be repeating a similar event in Houston tomorrow and Dallas on Sunday. So I'd like to just go through with you a few slides. I won't take too long, but as many of you probably know, there's about 5,000 goal clusters worldwide. And goal clusters meaning clusters where we want to have a program of growth. A program of growth with the core activities and with community building. In the United States, there's roughly was a goal of about 600. It's a little over that now because we overachieved, but it was roughly around that 6,000 mark. And then in our region, we came up with our fair share, which was a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, which was 71 clusters. And so we have achieved 71 clusters that are at a program of growth at whatever level of intensity, which is what the House of Justice said. We actually have 40 Milestone 1 clusters and 31 Milestone 2 clusters. So the Milestone 2 clusters have what's called an intensive program of growth, which Austin is one of them. I see people here from San Antonio. I know there's people here from many other clusters kind of in the area. And so then we got pretty excited because about a year ago, we reached our goal, and that was very exciting. But then, of course, and you all know what happened on December 29th, 2015, right? The House of Justice wrote this wonderful letter, and in that letter, they said that this combined effort should seek to raise the number of clusters where a program of growth has become intensive to 5,000 by Resvon 2021, the end of this new 5-year plan. And so all of those goal clusters, now where we just started work and started to have maybe a trickle of community building and core activities and teaching efforts, the House of Justice has asked us to sacrifice and have a huge effort to raise those clusters up to an intensive level, to have regular Baha'i activities, to have regular teaching, to have growth in those clusters. And we're sitting there thinking, how are we going to do this? how is this possible when most of the Baha'is live in the metro areas, right? And that's the way it is in all over the U.S. and maybe all over the world. I just know it's more in the United States. So there's two quotations that I'd like to share with you that helped us in our thinking. One of them, this one is from the December 29th, 2015 message from the House of Justice. It states in part, in many places, the Institute process begins with the assistance of believers from stronger neighboring communities who find creative ways of reaching out to the local population, youth in particular, and supporting them as they start to engage in service. Efforts to stimulate activity in a cluster, especially one that has not yet been open to the faith, are greatly enhanced if one or more individuals settle there as Homefront pioneers, concentrating their attention on part of a village or even a single street where there is heightened receptivity. So we started thinking about that and how could we help make that happen. Then, many of you might remember in May 23rd of 2016, less than a year ago, the House of Justice sent 2 letters. One letter was to all national spiritual assemblies, and the other one was to the Baha'is of the world. And the topic for both of those letters sent on the same day was pioneering, basically, opening the faith. The deployment of Homefront pioneers over the next 5 years will be largely guided by the requirements set out in our message dated 29 December 2015 to the Conference of the Continental Boards of Counselors. As stated in that message, the 5-year plan just launched aims at raising the number of clusters with an intensive program of growth to 5,000. A continuing flow of Homefront pioneers will contribute significantly to this monumental goal. Whatever assistance they are able to provide to further the work of the plan is, of course, most welcome. Nevertheless, their efforts will have an even greater effect if guided by the institutions. Their capabilities are directed towards specific needs in clusters where the Friends are laboring to intensify the growth process. So we thought, well, what are our needs? Where are our needs? Which clusters have the highest priority and need help from the outside or need some reinforcement? So with that, we came up, of course, with a map. I now love maps. I never thought too much about them. I thought they were something to get you from point A to point B, but now it's so exciting when you think about the faith in maps in terms of the faith. So these are all of our clusters in the 4 states in our region, which is composed of Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas. And if you're into acronyms, that's ALOT, a lot. Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas. So now I told you that there were several, 31 clusters where we already have a lot of Baha'is and we have a lot of activity, right? What we're wanting to focus on tonight is those other 40 clusters where we need assistance, and we're going to talk about ways that you can assist. And if we take out the clusters that have already a lot of activity, these are our goal clusters that we need to get to an intensive phase or intensive level. And I know you can't read all of that or see it, but we have a printout here on the easel. And then if you walk around in the area where we're going to have the food and refreshments, we have printed maps of each one of these so you can see where they're located in case you're interested in either moving there or deputizing someone else to move there, or maybe you can be a regular tutor that you travel there, like a mobile tutor, or maybe you have a summer off, you could dedicate a summer to that. And then I thought I would just show a few slides to break it down on a level that we could all understand. So in this area around Austin, the ones that I put in bold are those that are more higher priority, and you can see the kind of cutout of the map. Hill Country North, Bastrop County, San Antonio-Houston Corridor, and Hill Country Central. Those might not mean too much to you if you're not familiar with them. Those are the names of the actual clusters. And so you can kind of see where Austin and San Antonio are. There's those little white dots. You can come up and look at the map later, or the maps in the where the refreshments are going to be, and you can see where they actually are. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these right now because we've posted these maps to the website, which is www.southcentralcouncil.org. So you can even look at it on your phone now, or when you get home, just go to the southcentralcouncil.org, and then you can look at these in more detail. Then we have the Southeast Texas cluster grouping. As you can see, we're working in groupings of clusters now to make it break it down, make it a little easier. And these clusters are all helping each other in a grouping. And you can see the ones that we have here. This is in the Houston area. Then in the Southwest, San Antonio. How many of you are here from San Antonio? I know I saw a bunch. Yeah. Great. Welcome. So, San Antonio has a lot going on there, very strong cluster, but you can see that the other ones here that could use some additional help that are in bold. And same thing with, this is up north, in North Texas, Dallas area. We have several where we already have placed some Homefront Pioneers, and some where mobile tutors or mobile teachers are going there, starting devotions, starting study circles, or starting a junior youth group with the local population. Another one in the Dallas area is called Metro Crest. Another one in the Dallas area is Tarrant County, and you can see all the clusters there. And that stretches toward Odessa, Midland. I'm showing all of them because, you know, I never know who has connections where. I find that a lot of people who consider going Homefront Pioneering, they have children or grandchildren or cousins or friends that live in other parts of the region. And here's the state of Arkansas. What's unique about Arkansas is that McAllister, Oklahoma cluster is part of the Arkansas grouping, because the friends there on the border regularly hold feasts and holy days together, and so it's a natural organic grouping. In Louisiana, you can see they have several priority goal clusters, and Louisiana, we all know, has great music, great food. And speaking of that, in the back, Allison, I think the brochures are there. Maybe you could bring a couple and show them. We are putting together brochures. We don't have enough to hand out, but we're putting together brochures kind of like if you were a realtor, you would show off your property. Well, we're going to show off our clusters and put those on the website so that you can learn what universities are in that cluster, what other kind of amenities are there. You know, maybe there's something special like Texoma Lake has a lake. So if you want to go fishing and do things like that, you might want to live, well, we have many places in our region that have lakes and such. So you can look at those on the back table, and those will also be on our website. And finally, this is Oklahoma. Oklahoma has 3 goal clusters that are at milestone 1 that we're trying to raise up to milestone 2 by the end of this plan, which is April of 2021. So that's our goals in kind of a very brief, high-level overview. And you all have many opportunities to assist and help. Whether or not you can actually move and go pioneering, we can all pray, of course, for the success of the efforts. We can all help deputize others. Paula said if we can't go ourselves to teach, we can deputize someone in our stead. So we have that option. We can also perhaps go on weekends or holidays. Maybe there's certain times that we have off and we can be a teacher or a tutor. Or maybe we can move. Sometimes we think we can't, but there may be openings or possibilities where we can make that possible, we can make that happen, even if it's for a short term. The House of Justice said even as a 3-month period, you can do a lot. So with that, I would like to turn it back over to Nate, and We will have a little call to action and more information later after Mr. Dunbar's talk. Thank you.
So next up we have a very brief sharing of some comments from a few friends that have been serving as mobile resources. I want to invite Socorro and Lynn Richards up to the podium to, thank you very much.
I'm Lynn Richards, not Socorro. She couldn't be here tonight. She found out this morning that she has the case of shingles. And so she's in pain. I asked her prayers for her. And so she figured if you do better for everyone if she stayed behind. She's also contagious. So I have her notes, thankfully. But the council asked us to talk a little bit about our role in bringing a milestone 1 cluster up to milestone 2, which we helped do this last 2 years. We worked with the Victoria cluster. It is made up of the counties of Victoria and DeWitt County, and there is an assembly spiritual assembly in Victoria. It's been there many years, and the friends there are were very interested, wanting very much to heighten their participation in the plan. And so they were in touch with the auxiliary board member, a wonderful board member who serves that area as well as San Antonio, Irene Terbudo. Irene, are you here?
She's here.
Over
Yeah.
here.
Okay. There you are. Good. And Irene is sort of like, she's not a general, then she's at least a captain, in the Army of Light. And she really kind of kept everything in focus and going. And we were approached, Socorro and I, because we're tutors, we were approached to offer them a book 3 because they wanted to start children's classes down there. And that was in the prior plan, in the prior 5-year plan. And they needed to do that. They had the guidance, that was, told them that they needed to have at least 1 children's class going and a couple of devotionals to get themselves going in milestone 1. And they were successful in doing that by the end of this last plan, about a year ago. And so they had a team in place. It's a wonderful, made up primarily of 3 generations, or 4 if you count the child that goes with them. But it's exciting. And so they had been doing their children's class since October of 2015, and we're up to about 14 children. And some of the children were beginning to age out, and so they were thinking about, well, what can we do with that? Can we start a junior youth group? But wait, we don't have an animator here. And so once again, we were asked to go back and do book 5 with them, which we did. It was wonderful. We completed it in this past fall, and made a couple of trips to Victoria. There were a couple of friends also in Corpus Christi that wanted to get involved also, and they were not able to finish with the Victoria people, but then Wilson came up from the valley and helped them finish part of it. And then they have a full-time tutor that's a part-year resident there in Corpus, and who arrived and helped them finish it up. And so they've got a junior youth group going now, group going in Corpus Christi, and one going in Victoria now. And I'm pretty excited about that. It's just wonderful to see these things happen. I served as a Homefront Pioneer many, many years ago in Eagle Pass, still very near and dear to me. And that's where I met my wife, Socorro, and we served down there for a while. Went to San Antonio about 30 years ago. But, it's really, really exciting in these plans to see this framework for action and the systematic work and everything that we've done in the recent plans that has made so much possible, and we have still so much to do. We learned a lot in our experience down there, and I know I was asked to talk about that, so I'll just say that we really learned that, first of all, always is to persevere and keep going, because sometimes friends' lives get in the way, and you're not able, that month or that weekend got canceled, and you got to reschedule it and go back and make yourself available at a different time and go back and everything, and that's what we don't mind doing. It's great to be able to be with the friends. All the elements have to be in place, and all the guidance has to be there. And one thing that really, are there any friends here from Victoria?
Yeah.
Okay. I was hoping at least one or two. One thing that really, really made a difference for us, working with that group of people down there, was that they read the guidance. They were reading the guidance. They started studying the guidance. They came up. We had a wonderful kickoff of the 5-year plan in San Antonio. And they came to that. They were really, really focused on what is the plan, what are we supposed to be doing, and what's next for us, and where can we get help. So it's great, and everything has to work together. And you need to have a nucleus of people that have the desire to advance the plan. Their cluster, and will take an active part to do so. Thank you. And so with that, the training is the support, the accompaniment. We're going with each other, holding their hand when they go out their first time to knock on doors for parents, to ask them if they would be interested in having children's classes for their children in their neighborhood. That all takes a lot of guts. We don't all have that. And I don't. I like being accompanied to do things like that. So it works for everybody. I think Victoria is very fortunate, because they have, they're sort of in the center of the radius of Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, and they in Corpus benefit a lot from that focus from us. And the Valley, I might add. I love you guys for so far, but you make up for it in presence anyway. But that really helps a lot. It's going to be really interesting seeing how this is going to all come together. I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our prayers are with Socorro for recovery. And of course, many of us who have served in this room as a mobile resource or Homefront Pioneer. There's lots of experience, and so we hope that, in addition to talking with each other and sharing experience, we can inspire each other tonight as well. I want to say also we're very, very honored to welcome Mr. Hooper Dunbar, a retired member of the Universal House of Justice, here tonight. Mr. Dunbar, just a brief introduction, was born in Los Angeles, worked as an actor on stage and screen, and was a member of the Screen Actors Guild of America. When he left Hollywood to take up residence in Central and South America, he taught art and English as a second language and set up a graphic design business. However, his primary interest during those years was volunteer work as a teacher and lecturer for the Baha'i faith. And Mr. Dunbar served as a member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is in Nicaragua from its inception in 1961 to 1963, when he represented that assembly at the first international convention in Haifa, Israel. Subsequently, he was appointed as an auxiliary board member for the protection of the faith in the Americas, and then as a counselor for the protection and propagation of the faith. He took up residence in Israel in 1973 when he was named as one of the founding members of the International Teaching Center. Mr. Dunbar served as a member of that institution for 15 years until he was elected to the Universal House of Justice in 1988. One other special note, throughout his service at the World Center, Mr. Dunbar held a Thursday evening study class for the youth volunteering there, and that class ran consistently for over 30 years. So please join me in giving a very, very loving welcome to Mr. Dunbar.
So I always miss an introduction former.
And that means that I don't have any authority in what I'm saying. I'm traveling around, and I'm thrilled to see all of you. And I've been visiting communities. I've just spent a month in Australia, seeing the friends there, full of enthusiasm, radiance. Different places in Chile and South America. So I've come to Austin, and I'm very happy to be here and to see such a wonderful, radiant, enthusiastic group of friends. That's terrific. I thought I was coming to something that wasn't too active, but suddenly I'm overwhelmed by all of your capacities, the lovely devotions that you had, and the spirit of the faith that I feel in a meeting like this. That's so encouraging. I've kind of been basing what I've been visiting with the friends about in looking at sometimes, and there may be some of this here, but I hope not too much, the friends are busy with the activities. They're constantly moving and active, or they're not, and need to be. But generally, they have a feeling that the busyness is not producing the kind of results that they would hope to have from the efforts that they're putting into it. Now, that may be just that they're observing how the outer efforts, looking at judging the situations, has the faith really grown? Of course, there's all kinds of other growth going on, and the growth is going on inside of us too, to the degree that we sacrifice. Something else happens in the magic in our own consciousness, our own development, our vision of the cause. So, on the basis of that, and because I'm not familiar with all the details of the plans, and they keep evolving so quickly, and the protocols and all the various things that are there, which are important for us to know, I'd like to come back to what I think in your case would be just reminding us of where the ark of the cause is sitting. You know, it's sitting on the ocean of Baha'u'llah's revelation. And the House of Justice, from the time that it launched this revisioning of the activities throughout the world in the 1990s, didn't keep talking about what Baha'u'llah's talked about. House has figured the friends are already engaged in knowing what Baha'u'llah and Abdullah are saying, or that's the intention, that they should know those things. And so sometimes there has not been very much emphasis on those very essential steps which make service effective. So I look back in the writings of the Guardian, particularly, you see what he was stressing. He was concerned with a certain malaise in the American home front at the time. The last pilgrims said he was lamenting the situation, that there was no growth in the cause, there were no new believers. It was so minimal that it concerned him, the deficit on the home front. And through a series of letters that he sent out to various institutions through his secretaries, he stressed a pattern that I thought is useful for us to think about. And these basically you could summarize as 4 steps for success in Baha'i service. They're set forth by Shoghi Effendi. And I want to read a couple quotations. They're repetitive, but they also stress to us exactly what the content of these 4 is. This is all these letters are in the 50s. Success will crown the efforts of the friends on the home front when they meditate on the teachings, pray fervently for divine confirmations for their work, study the teachings so they may carry their spirit to the seeker, and then act, and above all, persevere in action. When these steps are followed, and the teaching work carried on sacrificially and with devoted enthusiasm, the faith will spread rapidly. This is the promise of the Guardian. The keynote of success, another letter, the keynote of success in the teaching field is study of the Word, prayer, meditation, and then action. Above all, perseverance in action. When these steps are followed in the realm of self-sacrifice, success will be achieved. So notice, friends, that beside the prayer, meditation, study, and action, the word perseverance keeps coming up. I was happy to hear General Rimmel mention how important it is to persevere. And then the question is carried out sacrificially and followed in the realm of self-sacrifice. Certain essential keys, so to speak, to gaining success. The success that we very much need in this 5-year plan. The House of Justice has urged us, to greatly increase our efforts. Now, by focusing back on the divine plan, you have Abdul Baha saying that he appreciates and praises the actions of the Friends, but then he says he wants the Friends to increase their activities. How much? Anybody remember? It's so overwhelming that we forget. 1,000-fold, he said. How about that? Whatever you're doing now, you have to do 1,000 times as much as that. Now, that's obviously, for most of it's an impossibility. We just don't know how could we possibly do that. But then he starts talking about the power of divine confirmation and how gnats can become eagles and how drops can become oceans. And that's it's a shift of divine gears, if you will, where Baha'u'llah is able to act through us because of our correct attitude, because of the preparation we perform through prayer, meditation, study, and action. Now notice that these 3 of them are very personal. Of course, there are group activities of that sort, but we need to take this on personally. Prayer, and then thinking about the teachings, studying the writings, and then arising to act. And this order is in the writings from the very inception of Baha'u'llah. He says that you must, if you want to teach, he said you must first teach your own self, so that your words will take effect in the hearts of the listeners. And sometimes we do busy activities, but we're not very satisfied, and we get discouraged, and we say, well, I've done so many cycles of growth, and I don't see any reaction from this. I think the problem is not with the forms of the plan. They need to go on, but it's with us internally. And if we want to turn this power up within us 1,000-fold, we've got to try to figure out what the secret is, so to speak. The Guardian took this same theme up with the Hands of the Cause. He wrote to the Hands of the Cause. A bit more elaborate passage. He said through the Secretary, the beloved Guardian has stressed over and over again that to effectively teach the faith, the individual must study deeply the divine word, imbibe its life-giving waters, and feast upon its glorious teachings. He should then meditate on the import of the word and finding its spiritual depths, pray for guidance and assistance. But most important after prayer is action. After one has prayed and meditated, he must arise, relying fully on the guidance and confirmation of Baha'u'llah to teach his faith. Perseverance in action is essential, just as wisdom and audacity are necessary for effective teaching. Wisdom and audacity, not something all of us possess innately. We've got the possibility. I mean, after all, if you become an eagle or an ocean, you have some other dimension of service there. Just as wisdom and audacity are necessary for effective service, the individual must sacrifice all things to this great goal, and then the victories will be won. Again, he says, study of the word, meditation on its divine import, and then action are necessary, and perseverance in action. If these steps are followed, one will develop spiritually and be victorious in service to the cause of God. That leads us on, friends, to a very interesting quotation also from the 50s, where the Guardian has explained some principles that are really astonishing when we think of them. He says, when a person becomes a Baha'i, actually what takes place is that the seed of the Spirit starts to grow in the human soul. When we become a Baha'i, the seed of the Spirit starts to grow in the human soul. This is this breath of the spirit of faith, the step of it, the beginning of eternal life that happens in us. And what does he say about it? He says this seed must be watered by the outpourings of the Holy Spirit. The water of the Holy Spirit is the only thing that's going to safeguard that seed so it grows safely in your soul. These gifts of the Spirit are received through prayer, meditation, study of the holy utterances, and service to the cause of God. So it all comes to the same. It's a formula of success for effective service in the cause. It's the same formula for that your soul can survive, that the Spirit within your soul can grow. And it's through these steps that we can assure ourselves of that change. And Joe Givinius talked about this sacrifice. It's part of the very important efforts. And he stressed that the cause grows through sacrifice, of course, drawing on the statements of Abdul Baha himself. And he talks about sacrifice consisting of 3 areas important for us to think about. The first area of sacrifice, he says, is money, funds, that we're called upon to contribute sacrificially. Now, one thinks now of sacrifice. Sacrifice is usually, as I understand, the way I've found that I understand it, is you do what you think you're able to do. You kind of work out all the rationale of how much I can contribute and how regularly and what I can do. I'm just in the field of finance. Nobody can tell you how much. You're deciding that. But anything beyond that, what you think is probably the rational balance in your life, becomes sacrifice. That's something that you hadn't intended to do necessarily, and maybe even hesitate to do. But we're faced with that challenge, that sacrifice is the fuel that makes the engine of the cause run and the faith progress. The second area of sacrifice, he says, is the sacrifice of, guess what? Time. Exactly. That's the one. We have, our time is all divided up. It's got its little packages and segments, and we all feel like, well, I have to take my daughter to the ballet class, and I've got to go to the baseball game, and I'm not going to miss the NFL games, and I have to do this, and I have to do that. And pretty soon our whole time is filled up. Gosh, I wish I had time for the cause, but I don't find any time. Sacrifice. Something's got to give so that we find more time to be able to contribute to all of these various goals and things that we've got before us. And so that we also take time for the element of prayer, meditation, and study so that the action will be effective. The third area, what's the third area? Does anybody remember? Person, he says. It's an abstract definition. You have to sacrifice your person. And I think the person has to do with the goals and intentions we have in life. The great things we want to do with our lives, with our money and with our time, also very closely connected with the person. And then in the person, we've got to put aside our decision to be the leading whatever it is we think we should be, or whatever the professional goals we have, maybe some of our studies in university, but maybe have to slow things down a bit so that we can give of our person. And the person, again, is the one that's trying to do the increase 1,000-fold at the efforts to serve the cause. So you can see how these things, these efforts, the 1,000-fold increase, goes into the areas of finance and time and person. And the writings of the cause, the prayers, the meditations, and the writings, the reading the writings, I think produces a fuel in us that enables us to take decisions where we are able to make sacrifices. Perseverance, particularly Shoghi Effendi was stressing this in the crusade, he had all these virgin goals, trying to get people out to go to these virgin goals. I remember hearing some pilgrims said they were at the table with the guardian, and he was talking about these great heroes and heroines that would go and open these goals. The very early part of the World Crusade, in the early 50s, 1953, 52, 53. And he said that he was thinking of calling them knights. Well, we know he finally settled on Knights of Baha'u'llah, and he made a wonderful scroll, and the people that arrived during that first year to any of those 130 virgin goals, their names were inscribed by Shoghi Effendi himself, and that scroll has since been rolled up and deposited beneath the threshold of the shrine of Baha'u'llah. At the time, he said, when he was contemplating this, he said, they said, Rihabana was there. She said, Shoghi Effendi, what are you going to call the ladies? 90s? Observer that I heard repeat this, the guardian didn't flinch. He went on with his explanation. Ignored comments. Perseverance. Okay, perseverance is another thing. How do we make our decisions, but do we waffle in the decisions? Do we pull back from the sacrifices we decide to do? Are we steady in the sacrifices? Do we reach a new level and then lapse again? We have to renew this thing all the time. We're trying to be persevering. There's a lot to that, I think. Bill Sears, there was so much talk about this. At the hand of the cause, William Sears, he had a drawing made to an artist and it showed a tropical island about as big as this platform with one palm tree in it and a bedraggled couple, man and his wife, who were pioneering there. They looked like there was nothing else on the island, and they were there, and they pulled a bottle out of the ocean, and it had a message in the bottle. They pulled it out, and they had this message open, and they were reading it. And the message said, persevere. Show me. Now, a lot of pioneers got letters like that. But that's the extreme representation of it, and they said that the guardian had a chuckle when he saw it himself. And of course, Bill Sears was very dedicated in his own pioneer services and persevering in Africa. He was at the table of the guardian, and the guardian was talking about pioneering. And he ventured. He said, Shoghi Effendi, where should we pioneer? He said, Africa. He said, where in Africa? He said, South Africa. Where in South Africa? Johannesburg. He said, I was going to ask the next one, but it had to have been the street address, so. But he did go on to Africa, and that was very exciting. You know, apartheid and so on. They had farms, and they hired farm helpers. All the farm helpers were the seekers of the faith. So they were in their one area, and they had to do some farming along with it, just to be able to be there and be deepened. And then they had their deepening courses and classes and so on. And eventually, they couldn't have a joint black and white assemblies. They had to have black assemblies at the beginning. That was the only way they could do it. Then eventually, they got to the joint ones. Terrific development went on in some of our lifetimes here. Now, looking at these elements of prayer, meditation, and study. Just a few comments about that. The prayers, of course, these most essential prayers that we have in the cause are the obligatory prayers. Very interesting. Sometimes we lose sight of that. I think people, it's harder when we're younger, remember to say it. There's this blessed permission from Baha'u'llah that after you're over 70, you don't have to say obligatory prayers. I was so grateful when I got to 70 because I had a hard time in the middle of all the housework at sundown. I couldn't remember if I had said the noon prayer or not. After I was 70, I didn't have to worry about that. But I think maybe I said it more after that. I hope so. Abdul Baha, in a tablet, he says that there are legitimate reasons for not saying the obligatory prayer. There's two of them. One of them is if you're too sick to get out of bed, pretty hard to do the long obligatory prayer. Maybe you could even just stand up if you can't get out of bed. You're excused. The other one, he said, is if you're mentally ill. So if you've missed your prayer, you have to choose between those two. If you want to escape the responsibility of consequences. Now, the other thing is the prayers, they raise high goals for us. You know, outside the faith, we think prayers, let's see now, what do I want to ask God for? But the things that Baha'u'llah has us ask God for are different from what we would imagine, you know. Lift the veil of self. Remove the least trace of corrupt desire from my heart. Enable me to attain to thy presence. It's spiritual, very spiritual goals, which change us and really then make the pathetic request for, you know, if I could just have a Lamborghini for a couple of years, whatever materialistic imaginations we have, they really seem completely out of place. We have never had such a wealth of prayers as we have from Baha'u'llah. This book, Prayers and Meditations, is very subtle. I know when I first read it, I thought, oh, this just repeats the same thing over and over again. How? One of the youth was telling me that the other day. I stressed how important this Prayers and Meditations. It's a forgotten volume. That and the Epistle of the Son of the Wolf. Don't let them out of your sight, you know. Grab a hold of these. They are terrific wealth. We've never had the commentary on the manifestation of God commenting upon his relationship with God, on his relationship with the Baha'i, with the friends, with the believers, on his relationship with those who are being persecuted. All of the character and dimension of these connections are personified in these prayers. I don't know, I keep reading the book and it seems that every time I look at it, it's new. I say, I must have read this part, but it seems fresh again. It's just that's spontaneous. So if for some reason you haven't explored it, get a hold of it and maybe read progressively through all the prayers, so you eventually get some general idea of the shape of the book. When Shoghi Effendi sent the manuscript of Prayers and Meditations way back in 1938 to the convention in the United States, because the U.S. was the first to publish the book, he said that he hoped that his book, above all others, now really, he's already done the Igan and Gleanings, and he said, this book above all others, he hopes the friends will embrace, so that they may draw nigh unto Baha'u'llah, that he might draw nigh unto them. It's in his convention message. Beautiful. Commends us to take a hold of that book in that manner. The consciousness, as I understand from the writings of the Master and Baha'u'llah, consciousness changes through interaction with the divine verses. These divine verses have a special power in them, and they replace errant ideas and borrowed knowledge that we've accumulated from society around us, from a very materialistic society around us, which, as much as we don't want to think in those terms, is telling us all the time that what we believe is airy-fairy, not quite accurate. How do we do this? I saw, with regard to meditation, we'll take a moment for meditation, we'll come to that other point on study. I saw in The Guardian, it said that meditation and prayer are two different activities. In one, you're drawing the effect of the divine verses, which are gradually building up within you. The more you read them, the more you engage with the hidden words, the more you read the gleanings and the Egon. And the whole structure of your spiritual relationship with God gradually is consolidated. And then he says that you have to come to the point where you see with your own eyes and not through the eyes of others. So it's a very individual goal that God is giving us through Baha'u'llah. Then he goes beyond that and he says, then you have to see with my eye and hear with my ear. Well, of course, isn't this a much greater absorption of the content of these divine texts that we've been given? How do we assimilate them? Then thinking about it, Shoghi Effendi says, the Baha'is should be left free to choose their own form of meditation, however they want to meditate. There's no formula for meditation in the Baha'i writings. But he goes on in another letter, he says, but the Baha'is would be well advised to meditate on the words of Baha'u'llah, on the divine verses. Sometimes you say, concentrate on your navel and empty yourself of all thinking, and in that emptiness you'll find God. You're free to do whatever you want, but he's saying, wouldn't it be more commendable to meditate on the words of Baha'u'llah? And if you look at the Egon, over and over he has these verbs that are very closely connected to meditation. Ponder this, he says. Reflect on this. Consider this. He's calling on us in our capacity as rational thinking beings to weigh the meanings of the verses and things that are before us. And this is the thing, so we're not just, as somebody said, if your prayer is like a telephone call, you call God and you talk to God, and as soon as you've finished, you hang up. It may be too quick, You should maybe, after you've asked him everything, listen to something back. Weigh what he's telling you. Discuss it in your own mind. Meditation. I think there's a lot of it that doesn't go on in a formal way. You've said the prayer and you're on your way to work and you're thinking about that verse, that line. Those things start connecting. The verses reveal the meaning of the verses, it says in one place in the writing. You wonder, how am I going to understand this? Well, it seems sometimes very abstract and difficult to understand. But the more we read it, the more we study, the more we absorb it, the more it consolidates itself in us and gives us the basis for them to be able to open our mouths and touch effectively others. Study of the writings, the same thing. We're told to read the verses of God morning and evening, to uplift, to give wings to the soul, to uplift the soul. This is in the Aktas. Friends, that is an important law that we need to follow. But that's not study of the writings. Not what Shoghi Effendi says, to painstakingly review and study the literature of the faith. Now, we've got our lifetime to do this. It takes time, but it takes some very concentrated effort to read the writings. People are not so used to it. We get out of the habit of it. We look at each other and we say, well, I know a lot more than she does or he does because I've read God Hassan's body. I mean, I've done the Egon. Shoghi Effendi said one of the believers said he'd done the Egon. the pilgrims, he said, friends, he said, you can't do the Egon. It never finishes, you know. You're constantly reviewing and thinking about it and rereading it. I saw some letters since I left Haifa, a few letters of the Guardian where he said he appealed to the friends to use their leisure time to study the writings of the faith, to ground themselves in the literature of the faith. And in one of them he says, he hopes, for a new believer, he hopes you will find a couple hours a day to study the literature of the faith. Friends, I can only imagine what would the Baha'i world turn into if we all took a couple hours a day to read the writings of Baha'u'llah. I don't know what would happen. I think things would happen pretty quickly. So I have resolved that I'm going to do it. But I find after about 10 minutes I fall asleep. So while you're younger, try to engage in the process. And if you can't reach the couple hours a day goal, at least use that as a way of saying, I need to do this every day. Maybe you've got a little more space for verses in the morning and the evening. I realize it's a challenge. You know, I see young parents with 2 kids, and you wonder how possibly you would also meditate 10 minutes before you completely pass out in the evening or whatever it is. It's an amazing process. I find that the compilation the House of Justice made for us on deepening in the writings of the faith has, especially in the section of messages from Shoghi Effendi, has a number of urging and suggestions. For instance, he says, to start off, I've ordered these in my own mind. There's not one letter that puts them all together, but I've ordered them myself just from my own reflection on them. He said we should read and reread the writings. We should painstakingly study the literature of the faith. We should digest the key central books of the faith, such as the Egon, Some Answered Questions, and the Dawnbreakers. Digest. Then he goes on in other letters and he says the friends should master each and every detail of those holy books. And finally, the last stage is the believer should memorize characteristic passages from the writings of Baha'u'llah, because the power of the divine word, nothing equals it if you use it in your teaching. And in order to use it in your teaching, you've got to be reading it and absorbing it and digesting it and mastering it and memorizing it. People say, well, which passages? Well, I think, friends, we could take from Shoghi Effendi's messages. He's quoted from the whole range of Baha'u'llah's writings certain key passages in the Advent of Divine Justice, and the Promised Day has come, in the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. So I don't think we're short on how to choose the various passages. If you can memorize everything, fine. I know Mr. Quadam, the hand of the cause, spoke to the youth when first summer I went to Geyserville, and he was saying that the youth should memorize the writings. So we said, oh, good, what do you suggest we memorize? And he said, the Egon would be good. He looked at us. Nobody, most of them didn't even know what the Egon was, but he looked at us and we looked a little startled. So he said, well, Epistle to the Son of the Wolf. It's a little shorter than the Egon. So then he explained that in Iran, the 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds memorized the Quran in Arabic, which wasn't their language. They would memorize the whole Quran as a preliminary to studying religious subjects. It's possible for human beings to do this, but we've sold ourselves a bill of goods. It's impossible. You can't memorize it. So this is a very important facet to the degree that we can. And the more we practice it, the more it will come to us. I don't know if some of you have heard of Helen Bishop, the first edition of the Guardian's translation of the Kitab in English, he asked a Western believer, a woman who traveled a lot and was a very effective teacher. Her name was Helen Bishop. She lived in Portland, but she was all over the world. And in the 30s, she went on pilgrimage to visit the shrines and meet the Guardian. And she tells this story on herself. She says, I thought I should prepare some difficult questions for the Guardian, you know. She said, I didn't think of it at the time, but I was really thinking questions that would impress him with how, you know, thinking about the faith and the deep love I had for the cause and so on. So she said, I went and I had my questions. And Shoghi Effendi greeted me and he seated me next to himself on his right hand. And she said, after warmly greeting me, he went on to talk with the other friends. And he never turned to me and said a word to me. And this went on, half an hour. And everyone was getting lavish attention, and she was... She says, I began thinking about my questions. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And what was the spirit that I created these questions in? And after she'd resolved that and decided that she would, you know, restrain herself, Shoghi Effendi turned to her with a big smile and he said, and now you must have some questions. Mrs. Bishop, you must have some questions. And she said, I couldn't remember any of them. But the next night, she did remember one. She said, Shoghi Effendi, what do you suggest to us? What can we do to make our teaching work more effective and be able to reach the hearts of people? And she said, I had no idea. I didn't preconceive what he was going to say, but I never expected what he did say. He said, Mrs. Bishop, you should memorize hidden words so that in your talks the traces of these phrases and things will come into the conversation so that they have this terrific penetrative power. So that's the last part about memorization. Now, action. My goodness. The Guardian, when he talks, and this was compiled by the House of Justice in a document called The Power of Divine Assistance. So the compilation, very important compilation. In Compilation of Compilations, if you've seen that publication, you can find all these quotes. And I think they're online now, in various places too. Looking at those, my own kind of take on the various letters and the things that they contain. The first thing that the Guardian says over and over again, based again on the tablets and his own divine inspiration and knowledge from the tablets and knowledge of the faith, he says is that you must never consider your own weaknesses, your own lack of capacity, your own inappropriate actions that would keep you from feeling you could teach the faith because you didn't live the why life, so to speak. All those, he says, if you think about those, if you concentrate on those, you'll paralyze yourself. You won't ever be able to move. Why is it? Because we all know our own imperfections more than anybody else knows. I mean, maybe a lot of us know my imperfections, I don't know, or know yours. But in any case, we know it better than they do. And he says, if you focus on those, you won't be able to move at all. So what should you be focusing on? And he said, that's the second principle that is stressed so much. He said, you must focus on the divine promises, on all these various promises. Go look at the tablets of the divine plan, just for starters, and write down all the promises of Abdul Baha, what he says there. Besides, he says what to do. He said you will be assisted. If you do this and this, this will happen. They're formulas, wonderful divine formulas. Now, one of the goals of the divine plan, he talks about the importance of the teachers arising with sacrifice and so on. He says, you must become, the Baha'is must become incarnate light. This soul, which is an effulgence of the divinity, that is our very nature, is our constitutional nature, when it's wed to the human flesh at the beginning, it turns outside. Instead of turning inside, it turns too much outside, and all of the physical, animal aspects of life take a dominance, and we lose the consciousness that the manifestations of God alone guide us to. They replace it. They awaken in us again the true character of this radiance, effulgence that is our inner reality. He hath known God who hath known his own true self. What an amazing statement. Find me standing within thee, mighty and powerful and self-subsisting. How do we become incarnate light? Coming to that awareness that there is something in us already that's the divinity itself. Abdul says in one place, he said, we are so dependent on the Holy Spirit and on that effulgence that without it we would have no mental capacities. Mental capacities are not physical, material things. They're spiritual realities. And we wouldn't even be able to have discursive thought without that blessing. Abdul quotes the central position of the manifestation of God with regard to creation. Baha'u'llah himself says, in the Quran, he says, all things live, move, and have their being in the manifestation of God himself. We are alive because of the manifestation, because of the conduct of the powers that come to us from God and give us our individuality. And what a miracle. We're all potentially able to reflect all the names and attributes of God. And Abdul-Baha stresses in one of his tablets, this was when he was 14 years old, he stresses that each of us has a dominant name of God. By the authority of God, he's put one of those divine names at the center of our being. All the others are there too, and we can develop those qualities and so on, but there's one that characterizes us. Now, we don't know, it's mysterious. Which is that? Which is your divine name? Which is the one that animates you? Is it the powerful? Is it the sincere? Is it the generous? Is it the compassionate? We have people in the community, you know, they say their prayers and they're like big mamas. They embrace us and fill us with hope, and we always go to them to tell our problems to. Quite different. But then we have speakers who are wise and eloquent. I went to a winter school in Cyprus, and the hand of the closet, Albert Mishael, was at this school as a teacher. And in an intimate conversation over a meal, I was fortunate to be able to talk to him. He said, you know, I'm so old now that my knowledge is gone. But he says the wisdom remains. He said it in a way which was not lacking in humility. It's just that having dealt with the words of God for so long, the solution to problems and difficulties that people would present to him, he'd have something to say which would be very inspiring and appropriate and would orient them in a wonderful way. Unfortunately, he destroyed the illusion by standing up when he was teaching a class about Christian prophecies and verses of the Bible, and suddenly took the chalk and started writing in ancient Greek. No knowledge? Okay. So the third of the elements of this action are to arise. Don't look at your faults. Rehearse the divine promises. Hold to them. Put their trust in them. And then arise. And be steadfast and persevering in action. and the action. I mean, you've got a whole formula, you've got a whole thing. What do you need to be doing? The House of Justice has been guiding us in that. Your institutions here all have their own ideas about that and pass them on. And in the end, I think if we all reflect on all these various points, we can get ourselves moving in a way that we may be able to achieve the goals of this 5-year plan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dunbar. That was awesome. I think we could all say we could listen to him for hours, a long time. I'm so blessed that you could come, really blessed. Friends, there was Mr. Dunbar reminded me about the cards for the questions and answers. Could someone hand them out, and while I'm saying a few more words, maybe those of you who have questions could write down short question. When you have the question filled out, could you just raise your hand, and maybe we could have a few helpers around the room just collect them and then give them to Mr. Dunbar, and he will grace us with answering some questions. Well, we're at the point where we want to talk a little bit about the call to action and next steps, and then kind of wrap up for the evening. I forgot my clicker. Hang on. One last quote from the House of Justice. This is from the May 23rd letter to the Baha'is of the world from the House of Justice. It states, while many friends who wish to serve as Homefront pioneers can make commitments that span years, there are those who may only be able to offer shorter periods, sometimes as little as 3 months. Such friends can kindle a spirit of selfless service and transmit valuable experience from stronger clusters to emerging ones. In time, they return to their communities much inspired and enriched, able to contribute even more effectively to the advancement of their own clusters. We hope that the friends, especially the youth who may have the time and determination to do so during their extended holidays, will take advantage of the opportunity to enter the pioneering field in this way. So I liked what Mr. Dunbar said too about, maybe it takes us a little longer to finish school, or maybe we take a few less credits during college, or maybe we have opportunities at work to sometimes pause between careers or between jobs, or changing careers, or during retirement. This plan is for everyone to participate, not just the young, not just the retired. I mean, it's really for all of us. So maybe we can search for how we can prioritize our lives, if there is anything else we can do to give. And a lot of people are sacrificing their weekends, like Socorro and Lynn Richards, going on a regular basis, 2-3 times a month, maybe once a month, twice a month, going to a nearby cluster, tutoring, encouraging the friends, visiting them. I think you would probably agree, Lynn, that you get as much from it as you give and help and accompany them. They accompany you too. It's not just a one-way thing. So on your chairs, you probably all saw the pledge forms. Did you all get 2 half sheets of paper? They aren't the same, they're different. One of them is a pledge form where you can pledge to be a Homefront pioneer, even if it's a year or 2 from now, or maybe it's next month. You could pledge to offer a period of service, be a volunteer for 3 months, 6 months, a year, or even a couple of weeks. You could pledge to be one of these mobile tutors, mobile teachers. if you would, please fill out the form if you can do that, any of those. And we will collect those forms at the end of the evening, and then we will contact you at some point later in the near future. We have a Homefront Pioneering Task Force that's made up of 2 auxiliary board members, 2 council members, and 2 Regional Training Institute board members. And so I'd like to thank all of them for helping with all the coordination, and then they assisted with event coordinators for these galas. But we want to have you fill these forms out, and then the second form is a pledge form for donations, and I have envelopes in the table as you leave. You can take an envelope, and if you like to contribute something, you can take it with you. The address is here where you can mail your contribution. It goes to the National Baha'i Fund, but earmarked. How many of you are using the online contribution system? Cool, wonderful, yeah, I love it. So there's once you log in from your smartphone or your tablet or your iPad or your computer or your laptop, once you log in, you go into the system, and then you can click on and choose Deputization Fund - South Central. And it's so cool that it's customized just for you. So I live in Dallas, so of course I can choose from the National Baha'i Fund, Continental Fund, all of these different funds. And then there's the South Central Regional Baha'i Fund, the Deputization Fund for South Central, and then my Dallas community. Isn't that amazing? Technology. Or if you would just like to pledge, then we will keep that confidential, give it to our treasurer, and our treasurer can follow up with you, and if you'd like to pledge it for a specific time, of the year or something like that, or certain periods, you could do that. And we will put that we have a special fund dedicated for deputization in our region. So when people, need some gas money, or they need some additional assistance or funds to go to some of these goal clusters that we've been talking about, then we'll have the funds to use for that. Are there any questions for me or the council at this point of any of the kind of logistical things? Yes? Can you give us an address where you can mail these? Yes, so on the bottom of the deputization fund, there's an address. And if you would like to mail the pledge form, I have my phone number and my email. You could just email that address because this isn't, you don't have to send anything physical like a check or whatever. And then the other one, all of the funds, I'm not sure if you're all aware, but all the funds for all the councils go directly to national, and then if they're earmarked, then it's put into the particular region or council. So, but national, it has them all. Yes?
Can you do a reminder that it's only Baha'is who can contribute?
Yes, thank you. So only Baha'is can contribute to the Baha'i Fund. So anyone, who isn't a Baha'i here, we don't take your funds unless you want to declare tonight. But yeah, so I'm glad you asked me to remind that. So the special, I think, unique, wonderful thing about the faith is that we don't ask you to give or contribute. And on the other hand, it's only our privilege and our responsibility and our duty to give. So it is a really precious thing to think that all the funds that we get for these deputization comes from the Friends. And we're trying to be self-sufficient and financially independent as far as being able to support the Friends that arise from within our own region if we can. So we're not asking national. Of course, they are ready to support us if we need. And then I would say, are there any other questions? Right, so if you want to hand in the pledge form, you can give it to me or Nate or Nadia or Allison, or you can just bring them here. We don't have a special box for the for the envelopes or for the pledge forms. So just give it to one of us. And we have a few volunteers. Where are the volunteers that are going to enter it into laptop? We decided that paper, yeah, you want to stand up to give it to your, maybe? I thought Irene was one of them. There she is, Irene. So you can definitely give it to her. We've got a couple, we're trying to get more organized. We have a couple of people who are going to enter in pledges right away. So we capture them, we don't lose them, and lose the papers or lose the momentum, and we'll follow up right away. Thank you. And then I would say, you know, the last bullet talks about prayer, and we just heard the power of reading the writing, studying, meditating, praying, and how prayer is so important to reach our goals. Are there any questions? Anyone fill out a card? Any questions for Mr. Dunbar?
We're going to take questions. Is it okay if I just wanted to add something to what you just said?
Yes, I would like to introduce our dear counselor and
stand here for a moment so I could look at everyone. It was so marvelous. Thank you so much for coming out. It's just to pull into the driveway and to think about the planning that all the friends in the region went through as they were discussing and trying to figure out what were some of the ways to meet the needs in all of the clusters throughout the region. And as their ideas coalesced, the consultation was beautiful, and then of course tonight you're all here. And I was just, of course, like you, so moved by what Mr. Dunbar was sharing with us about the fact that so many of the ways that we're going to arise to serve and prepare ourselves are really in the privacy of our own chamber. You know, these methods and these techniques that we've been given to do that. So I just wanted to just perhaps echo on what Regina was sharing with us and encourage that today we would do our very best to leave the forms that we have with the friends here. And the reason I want to encourage that is because of the divine confirmations that we can attract. Even if we're sitting here this evening thinking, I'm not quite sure how I can donate this money for deputization. I'm not really sure how I could actually contribute this period of service. And I know that one of the things that was raised this evening was the fact that sacrifice actually comes from something which is not necessarily comfortable. But that without opening up the possibilities that the path will be open for us, that maybe that door won't be there. So I was thinking if we could all do what we could to think about filling out the forms to the best of our ability, thinking about ways that we can serve and so forth, and leaving them, even if we're not entirely sure how that's going to take place. Because our faith is so replete with examples of the friends who arose in that manner. And many of us in this room can speak about those occasions when we thought, I have no idea how this is going to happen. And yet, praise God, I'm going to try. I'm going to pray, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to study, I'm going to act. And then these doors, these paths open up for us. And I was meeting with our beloved National Spiritual Assembly last week, and something that was shared kind of rang to me that I thought maybe to share with you as well. And it was speaking about the professions of Baha'is in the United States and the nice statistics that we have here. And it's probably not surprising to any of you that the largest profession served by Baha'is in the United States is education. Such a meritorious service. I was just thinking that in many cases as educators, there's a period of time during which people naturally don't actually have a block of work that they have to do, maybe in a school setting. And so perhaps that could be one way that one could serve. I do realize that there are, of course, other ways that one might fill that time. However, maybe we could give thought to the fact that many of us may be educators, and maybe we'd like to, at this particular time, with this call from our regional institutions, to dedicate and sacrifice that time this year to this particular service. So just a few things to consider this evening, and most of all, just an opportunity to look out and see all of you and how wonderful and beautiful and just magnificent the services that you're rendering in the region are already. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor. I know many of you are also parents, and I just wanted to say that it's so wonderful and wanted to express our thanks and gratitude for all the parents that encourage their high school, college age, and young adult children to offer service. I can't tell you how many of the youth are encouraged by their parents or their grandparents or their aunts or their uncles or maybe their friends, and are spurred on to service that maybe they would not have done it otherwise. So sometimes we underestimate our role, as a parent, a friend, a neighbor, a relative, what we can do to encourage especially the youth and the young people, the young adults, towards service. So I meant to mention that, and I hope that will be something we can all take away from this as well. With that, I'll turn it back over to Nate.
Thank you, Rubina. Thank you, everyone. We are coming to the close of tonight's program. Again, thank you so much for everyone seeing. It is very actually stunning to look at your radiant faces right now. And also, I would like us to give Mr. Dunbar another round of applause. Yes, and we can all take a moment. We'll have a closing prayer, and after that, please, I hope we can all enjoy some refreshments outside. And I think for this, closing prayer, we can take a moment and reflect and meditate on this point in time and what will be undertaken in the next 4.5 years, and the services that we'll render, and our prayers for the success of those services. So thank you again so much for being here.
Oh my God, thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teaching among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom, and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all peoples, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent, and the doer of whatsoever thou wast.